get involved in political
All right, guys, I thought we'd
affairs
hang
of
out
a
with
nation like
this.
the United States.
It's already, the proceedings
Congressman,
have
the
been
first
going
thought
on,
that
so
comes to mind is Russian interference.
we'll make some comments here as we go
in
along.
2016, the impact that had on
Most name brand bars and
Toronto
body
politics and the consequences it had for Russia itself.
Exactly.
This administration
What's up, guys?
enforced sanctions, heavy
Here goes
sanctions
the dog and
against
pony show.
Russia for their interference. And that would not be in U.S. policy to.
And so, Mr. Colonel, I'm running out of time.
understand.
Is it normal for a private citizen, a non-U.S. government official, to get involved in foreign policy and foreign affairs like Mr. Giuliani?
I don't know if I have the experience to say that, but it certainly wasn't helpful and it didn't help advance U.S. national security interests.
Thank you, Mr.
What's up,
Chairman.
Brian? What's up, TNT?
Mr. Turner. Ms. Williams, Lieutenant Colonel Vinneman, I want to thank you also for your service. Your knowledge and expertise is incredibly important as we look to formulating policy with both our allies and to try to counter those who are not our allies. I think we're all very concerned about our European policy and how it can thwart Russian aggression.
Can you guys hear it okay?
Ms. Williams, and you were responsible, as you said, as part of your portfolio, you advised the Vice President about Ukraine, correct?
Correct.
Lieutenant Colonel Vinneman, you said that you are the principal, in your opening, you say you are the principal advisor to the President on Ukraine, and you coordinate U.S.-Ukraine policy, correct?
Congressman,
Welcome
in this
to the Dog and Pony
statement I
Show.
issued this morning, I probably eased that back. I took that off my job description that I have on my eval, but I certainly spent much more time advising the ambassador than I did the president.
But your statement, as you submitted it and read it today, says, at the NSC, I am the principal advisor to the National Security Advisor and the President on Ukraine, correct?
That is not what I read into the transcript. That might have been what I had in there yesterday when I was drafting it, but I chose to ease back on that language, even though it was in my evaluation, just because I didn't want to overstate my role.
You wrote what I just read.
But
Eating breakfast.
Congressman, what I'm saying is what I read into the record this morning didn't say that.
Okay. Noted. Because you know Ukraine, you know that we work through our allies and our multilateral relations, and you know that Ukraine is an aspiring member of the EU and NATO, right, Ms. Williams?
Yes, that's correct.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman?
Yes, correct.
And you know that probably that the EU and the NATO both have offices in the Ukraine, and that we try to advance our policy with the EU and NATO. And you would agree that our Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchinson and Ambassador Sondland would be responsible for advancing our policy interest with Ukraine at the EU and at NATO, right, Ms. Williams?
I would say that certainly in terms of this specific relationship between NATO and Ukraine, that would fall to Ambassador Hutchison, and between the EU and Ukraine to Ambassador Sondland. But obviously we have an ambassador in Ukraine as well.
Right. Lieutenant Colonel Vinneman, you would agree?
I agree with Ms. Williams.
Great. Now, Lieutenant Colonel, you said in your written statement that Mayor Rudolph Giuliani promoted false information that undermined the United States-Ukraine policy. Have you ever met Giuliani?
Just to be, again, accurate, I said false narrative just because that's what I said in the record this morning, but
Okay.
I have not met him.
And so you've never had a conversation with him about Ukraine or been in a meeting with him where he has spoken to others about Ukraine?
No, just what I saw him, his comments on TV.
So news
and in
reports.
news, yes.
And similarly, you've never met the President of the United States, right?
That is correct.
So you've never advised the President of the United States on Ukraine?
I advised him indirectly. I made all his preparations for the calls and.
But
for his
you've
engagement.
never spoken to the President of the United States and told him advice on Ukraine?
That is correct.
So in your written statement, you said, in May, I attended the inauguration of President Zelensky as part of the President delegation led by Secretary Perry. Following the visit, the members of the delegation provided President Trump a debriefing. Well, that's not really accurate, right? Because the members didn't, because you were a member, but you weren't in that meeting, were you?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll just have a note there that meeting occurred without you. You do know that this impeachment inquiry is about the President of the United States, don't you, Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman?
I do, Representative.
Excellent. Now, you've said that you're responsible for coordinating U.S.-Ukrainian policy.
Correct.
Does the Secretary of State, Pompeo, report to you?
He does not.
Ambassador Volker?
He does not. We coordinate.
Ambassador of Ukraine, EU, NATO, Assistant Secretary for Europe, anyone at DOD report to you with respect to your responsibilities of coordinating U.S. policy with Ukraine?
Congressman, at my level, I convene what's called a sub-policy coordinating committee. That's Deputy Assistant Secretary. I chair those meetings. And I
Does
bring together
anybody
those
need
folks.
your approval in your role on Ukraine policy to formulate Ukraine policy? Do they seek your approval?
According to the NSPM4, the policy signed by the president,
So he
policy
gets to
should
do
be
it.
coordinated by the
He gets to do it.
NSC, correct? We help
Ms.
advise.
Williams, do you have any information that any person who has testified as part of this impeachment inquiry, either in secret or in public, has either perjured themselves or lied to this committee?
Yep, I
have
agree,
not
Lee.
read the other
It's all theater.
testimonies, and
So you do not, do you have any evidence, though, that they have perjured themselves or lied?
no, because I have not read them.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman, do you have any evidence that anyone who has testified before this committee in the impeachment inquiry has perjured themselves or lied to this committee?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Chairmanship. I yield to the chairman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Wanted to just make one point
Yeah, I don't see
clear
any
for
evidence
folks that are
that
watching
Epstein is
hearing
dead.
today. Bribery does involve a quid pro quo. Bribery involves the conditioning of an official act for something of value. An official act may be a White House meeting. An official act may be $400 million in military aid. And something of value to a president might include investigations of their political rival. The reason we don't ask witnesses that are fact witnesses to make the judgment about whether a crime of bribery has been committed or whether, more significantly, the
Exactly,
founders had in
exactly,
mind
Zachary.
when they itemize
Lobbying is
or
bribery.
other
Give me a
high crimes and
break.
misdemeanors is your fact witnesses. It will be
Guys, that's why
our
I'm watching
job
this
to
with you
decide
guys. We're going to bring out
whether
stuff that
the
mainstream
impeachable
media is
act
not
of
going to talk
bribery
about or
has occurred.
comment on.
That's why we don't ask you those questions.
Yeah, we have
one thing,
lobbyists
you're also
running
not aware of
Washington,
all the other
D.C., but
facts
we don't
that have
want
been
quid pro
introduced into
quos.
the
No, no, no.
investigation. With that, I yield back to Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you both for your service. Colonel Vindman, you were in a July 10th White House meeting in Ambassador Bolton's office. Isn't that right, sir?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
You were in a July 10th White House meeting with Ambassador Bolton.
Correct.
In that meeting, the Ukrainians asked about when
Don't look
they
into
would
his
get the
eyes.
Oval Office meeting, and Ambassador Sondland replied that they need to, quote, speak about Ukraine delivering specific investigations in order to secure a meeting with the president, end quote. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Colonel Vindman, did you later learn why Ambassador Bolton cut the meeting short?
I did.
After Ambassador Bolton ended that meeting, sir, some of the group that attended a follow-on meeting in a different room in the White House called the Ward Room. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And Ambassador Sondland was there with the senior Ukrainian officials. Is
Good
that
move,
correct?
That is
Gwag.
correct.
Did NSC lawyers tell you to come directly to them, sir, if you had any other concerns after July 10th?
They said that, I believe the words were something to the effect of, if you have any other concerns, feel free to come back.
In this follow-on meeting, sir, Ambassador Sondland left, in your words, no ambiguity about what specific investigations he was requesting. Ambassador Sondland made clear that he was requesting an investigation of Vice President Joe Biden's son. Isn't that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And he stated that he was asking these requests in coordination with Chief of Staff, White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, correct, sir?
That is what I heard him say.
Colonel, in your career, had you ever before witnessed an American official request that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen who is related to the president's political opponent?
I have not.
And Colonel, you immediately raised concerns about this, correct, sir?
That is correct.
What exactly happened?
After I reported it to the, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? I apologize.
You raised concerns about this, correct, sir?
Correct.
What happened?
To Ambassador Sondland, if I understood you correctly, I stated that it was inappropriate and had nothing to do with national security policy.
Did you also raise concern that day with White House lawyers?
I did.
What did you tell them?
I reported the same thing that I reported the.
Investigating a
content
corrupt
the
son of a
conversation
corrupt
with
vice
Ambassador
president
Sondland.
has nothing to do with
At
national
that point, I
security.
wasn't aware
Really?
that Dr. Hill had a conversation with Ambassador Bolton. So I just relayed what I had, what I experienced to the attorney, lead legal counsel.
As we are now aware, sir, Ambassador Bolton expressed his concerns and instructed Dr. Fiona Hill, your supervisor, to also meet with the same White House lawyers to tell them what happened. Colonel Vindman, I agree that there is no question that Ambassador Sondland was proposing a transaction to Ukrainian officials trading White House meetings for specific investigations, with the full awareness of the President's Chief of Staff, White House attorneys, and his National Security Advisor. In my view, sir, that's appalling. Thank you both for your service. I yield back to the chairman.
Thank the gentleman. I would just point out as well that when the matter does move to the Judiciary Committee and no decision has been made about the ultimate resolution, the White House, through its
Don't
counsel,
look
will have
into his
the opportunity
eyes.
to submit, make a submission to the Judiciary Committee. I now turn to Dr. Wenstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant Colonel Bidman, thank you very much for being here. As an Army colonel who served a year in Iraq, I appreciate your service and the sacrifice that you made during that time, and I know the environment. And I understand and appreciate the importance of chain of command. In your deposition, you emphasized the importance of chain of command. You were a direct report to Dr. Fiona Hill and then Mr. Tim Morrison, and they were your seniors, correct?
That is correct.
When you had concerns about the 725 call between the two presidents, you didn't go to Mr. Morrison about that, did you?
I immediately went to John Eisenberg, the lead legal counsel.
So that doesn't seem like change of command. So
That's not-
in the deposition with Mr.
sorry,
Morrison,
that-
page
could he
58
answer
to
the question?
60.
Congressman,
Excuse me, please allow Colonel Vindman to answer.
So I reported it to John Eisenberg. I attempted to report it to Mr. Morrison.
Okay, thank you.
He didn't avail himself.
What's up,
And
Colorado?
at that point, I was told
What's
not
up,
to tell
Amagansett
Well, he
Press?
did
anybody else
avail
by Jeff.
himself, and I'll get into that.
Please
but-
allow the witness to finish. Colonel, are you finished with your answer?
Yes.
By the way, go to these guys' YouTube channels. They got great
In the
content.
Morrison deposition on page 58 to 60, the question was, do you know if anyone else on the call went to Eisenberg to express concerns? And the answer was, I learned based on today's proceedings, based on open source reporting, which I have no firsthand knowledge, that other personnel did raise concerns. Question, who? Based on open source, without firsthand knowledge, Alex Vindman on my staff. The question then, and he reports to you, correct? Answer, he does. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's direct report was Mr. Morrison, and it didn't happen. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, in your deposition, page 96, the question was, okay, after the call on 725, do you have any discussions with Mr. Morrison about your concerns? Answer, after the call, per the exercise in the chain of command and expressing, I immediately went to the senior NSC legal counsel and shared those concerns. That would be Mr. Eisenberg, correct?
I'm sorry, my lawyer was talking. Could you say that again, please, Doctor?
You went to Mr. Eisenberg. You've already said that, so we can
Yes.
go on. And you are not a JAG officer. You're not a lawyer. And on page 153.
Can you
of-
imagine
of
making
your
$174,000 a
deposition,
year just sitting
in
around doing
reference
this
that
stuff?
meeting with Mr. Eisenberg. you
Not
said I was
producing anything,
making
not
a
helping the
legal
American
judgment. All I
people.
was doing is sharing my concerns with my chain
Exactly,
of command.
Biggie Smalls.
Yet we've
Big waste
established
of
that your
time.
direct report is to Mr. Morrison. So let's establish your role and your title. In your deposition.
Yeah, Gabriel, I want my money
page
back, too.
200, 201, in a colloquy with Mr. Stewart, you said, I would say, first of all, I'm the director for Ukraine. I'm responsible for Ukraine. I'm the most knowledgeable. And I'm there for the National Security Council and the White House. Are you the only one of the entire universe of our government or otherwise that can advise the president on Ukraine? Couldn't someone like Ms. Williams also advise on Ukraine? It's in her portfolio.
That's not typically what would happen. It would be, frankly, it would be Ambassador Bolton. that would be
Other,
advising.
so
Yeah,
other people
exactly.
can advise
Colorado
on
Donkey
Ukraine
Watch
besides
is
you.
right. It's the people's fault for
Going on
putting
in
up
your
with this
testimony, you
crap.
said, I understand all the
Sorry,
nuances,
guys, I'm
the
stuffing my
context and
face
so
with
forth surrounding
breakfast.
these issues. I, on my judgment, I expressed concerns within the chain of command, which I think to me, as a military officer, is completely appropriate, and I exercise that chain of command. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, on your deposition, page 259, you said, I forwarded my concerns through the chain of command, and the seniors then decide the action to take. Mr. Morrison's your senior. He didn't know about it. How can he decide an action to take? But that's what you said. In Mr. Morrison's deposition, page 60, the question is, at what point did you learn that Lieutenant Colonel Vindman went
That's
to
funny,
Eisenberg?
Kevin.
He said, about the
Did you have a
25th
jacked
phone
up
call? I
Chevy?
said, yes. In the course of reviewing for this proceeding, reviewing the open record. So the next question, so Eisenberg never
No,
came
the
to
slurred
you?
speech is because I'm
And
stuffing
relate
my
to the
face with
conversation?
breakfast real
Said,
quick so
no.
I can talk.
Said, Ellis never did either? Not to the best of my recollection. So Mr. Morrison was skipped in your chain of command about your other concerns. So Mr. Morrison said he's the final clearing authority. He said he saw your edits. Do you remember if all of the edits were incorporated? And he said, yes, I accepted all of them. That's on page 61, 62.
Yeah, Ho operator says they're
So
protected
he
by the
believes all
barrel
your
of a
edits
gun.
were
Every one
accepted.
of these
Let me
people
ask
sitting
you,
here are
were in
protected
your
by armed
edits,
security
did you
guards
insist
on your
that the
dime,
word
on my
demand
dime.
be put into the transcription between the conversation of the two presidents?
I did not.
But you did say that in your opening statement today. Thank you, and I yield back.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for your testimony and your service. Colonel Vindman, wasn't it the case that Mr. Eisenberg, the attorney, had said to you after the July 5th meeting that you should come to him if you have any other concerns?
After the July 10th meeting, yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And it is not going outside the chain of command to speak to a lawyer within the institution, is that correct?
No, he is the senior between the two, certainly.
All right. Our colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been complaining about other witnesses having only secondhand information. But in both your cases, you have firsthand information because you were on the July 25th phone call. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Now,
I'm just gonna pause this real quick. How this is relevant to me is because these bloodthirsty, parasitic politicians are extracting the product of our time and laboring energies. Okay, $174,000 a year. That's a lot of money. It's 80 or 90 bucks an hour. I don't know anybody in my zone of influence that comes even close to making 80 or 90 bucks an hour. And they're going to sit here in this three-ring circus, this bread and circus, this dog and pony show, and try to pretend like they're going to get to the conclusion of some crazy idea that it's wrong, somehow wrong for a political leader, which is, it's evil to be a political leader, guys. They have evil motives. They have evil agendas, evil narratives. That this one political leader, that is Trump, that it's somehow bad to ask another evil political leader, that is Zelensky from Ukraine, to investigate a corrupt political leader's son, that's Joe Biden. It's just it's a corrupt guy asking a corrupt guy to investigate a corrupt guy's corrupt son. It's ridiculous. And the reason that's relevant is because all this is happening under our watch. All this is happening basically with our allowance, with our approval. And we got to stop it. This lens is blurry. Sorry about that. I didn't know that. All right, so back to the dog and pony show. That's why it's relevant. That's why it's relevant to me. That's why I watch these people. These people are insane.
you, in your comments today, said, "I want to state that the vile character attacks on these distinguished and honorable public servants is reprehensible." Would you like to expand on that at all?
Ma'am, I think they stand on their own. I don't think it's necessary to expand on it.
So in both your situations,
Thanks for the
you have
super
given
chat,
depositions,
and I
since
really
those
appreciate that.
depositions have been made public, have you seen your experience in your respective jobs changed, or have you been treated any differently?
I have not, no.
Since the report on the July 25th, as I stated, I did notice I was being excluded from several meetings that would have been appropriate for my position.
Yeah, Ho operator, thanks for that
So,
super chat. I'll talk about
In some
that
respects,
later.
then, there have been
Good,
reprisals.
really good point.
I'm not sure if I could make that judgment. I could say that it was out of the course of normal affairs to not have me participate in some of these events.
Thank you. In preparation for the July 25th phone call, it's standard for the National Security Council to provide talking points. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because the words of the president carry incredible weight. Is that not correct?
They shouldn't.
That is correct.
So it's important to ensure that everyone has carefully considered the implications of what the president might say to a foreign leader.
That is correct.
Colonel Vindman, you are the National Security Council's director for Ukraine. Did you participate in preparing the talking points for the president's call?
I did, I prepared them.
So you prepared them, they were then reviewed and edited by multiple senior officers at the NSC and the White House, is that correct?
That is correct.
Did the talking points for the president contain any discussion of investigations into the 2016 election, the Bidens or Burisma?
They did not.
Are you aware of any written product from the National Security Council suggesting that investigations into the 2016 election, the Bidens or Burisma are part of the official policy of the United States?
No, I'm not.
Some of President Trump's allies have suggested that the president requested these investigations for official policy reasons as part of some plan to root out corruption in Ukraine. In your experience, did the official policies of the United States include asking Ukraine to specifically open investigations into the Bidens and interference by Ukraine in the 2016 election?
Nothing that we prepared or had discussed up until that point included any of these elements.
Would it ever be U.S. policy, in your experience, to ask a foreign leader to open a political investigation?
There are proper procedures in which to do that. Certainly, the president is well within his right to do that. It is not something the NSC, certainly a director at the NSC would do.
All right, so if
As
it's
a matter
well
of fact,
within
we
his
are
rights to do
prohibited
that,
from
what's the
being
problem?
involved in any transaction between Department of Justice and a foreign power to ensure that there is no perception of manipulation from the White House. So it is not something that we participate in.
Ms. Williams, in your experience, did the official policies of the United States include asking Ukraine to open investigations into the Bidens?
I had not seen any reference to those particular cases in our policy formulation process.
All right, let me just say to you, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, that in listening to your opening statement, I had chills up and down my spine. And I think most Americans recognize what an extraordinary hero you are to our country. And I would say to your father, he did well. I yield back.
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman.
Little
Thank
appeal
both of
to
you for
emotion
being here
there.
today. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, I see you're wearing your dress uniform. Knowing that's not the uniform of the day, you normally wear a suit to the White House. I think it's a great reminder of your military service. I, too, come from a military family. These are my father's Air Force wings. He was a pilot in World War II. 5 of his sons served in the military. So as one military family to another, thank you and your brothers for your service. Your example here. Very quickly, I'm curious, when Ranking Member Nunez referred to you as Mr. Vindman, you quickly corrected him and wanted to be called Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Do you always insist on civilians calling you by your rank?
Mr. Stewart, Representative Stewart, I'm in uniform wearing my military rank. I just thought it was appropriate to stick with that.
Well,
Because-
I
I'm sorry,
assure you
Mr.
he
Stewart.
meant no- I
I
assure you
apologize.
he meant no
Because
disrespect.
I don't believe he did, but the attacks that I've had in the press, in Twitter, have kind of
Yeah, well, he's talking about this stupid uniform. And I say stupid uniform, guys, because listen, it's a military industrial complex uniform. Even those of you who are retired military or in the military right now, if you're honest with yourself, you know what's going on with the military. You know the military industrial complex is controlled by the Zionists. You know the Pentagon is completely wasting taxpayer money left and right faster than it can even come in. We talked yesterday about on September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld got up there and said $2.3 trillion was accounted for. $2.3 trillion is unaccounted for from the bureaucrats. He called them the Pentagon bureaucracy from the Pentagon. $2.3 trillion. That was up just up to that time. What's that, 18 years ago now? How much have they wasted since then? It's garbage. It's ridiculous. The military is being used to empire build throughout the world. It does not care about American interests. It cares about globalist interests. And nothing changed when Trump came into power. It's just so funny how we talk like that. the USMCA, which is the trade deal with the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is NAFTA 2.0. If you look at it, it's a trade deal that has more government regulations, more government control, more government intrusions, more government policies laid down. So, and they're globalist policies that strip sovereignty from Americans. So, Bacchus Shamil says, he said, Brian, most useless eaters Americans would disagree with you that impeachment circus is legitimate. I know a lot of people think it is legitimate, but it is patently illegitimate. And the reason we know that is because every one of these congressmen and senators who are involved in this, let's say all 535 were involved in it. They're Title 28, Section 3002, 15A corporate employees, and they're looking out for the corporate interests. The corporate interest is interested in extracting and wasting your money. That's what the corporation is doing. So when you're a senator or a congressman, you become a part of the corporation. You take the pledge to protect, they say to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's an absolute lie. And this is a farce because people act like, well, if you come before Congress and you take that oath, you're under oath, you can't lie. Oh, it's like some kind of magical process. I don't think so. I don't think so. He says, I'm more concerned with chemtrails that they're spraying every day. Yeah, I was coming home this morning and I got some really good footage of chemtrails. 2 hours ago, we had clear skies in Oklahoma. Now they're just spraying left and right. Manic Cam says, John E. Hoover needs to go viral. Yeah, that guy did a lot of really good work. If you're wondering what they're talking about, check out my last video about Las Vegas and the camera on the corner of Mandalay Bay Road and Las Vegas Boulevard. That camera took some pretty interesting footage that the Las Vegas Police Department is not and will not talk about. That's what I like about the internet, man. We can all get together. None of us is greater than all of us. Oh, that beeping. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's a beeping going on. Let me see. Let me see if I can get rid of it. That's that. Thank you, whoever said that. I really appreciate it. All right, beeping gone. All right, let's get back to the Dog and Pony Show. It's germane. It's relevant to talk about the Dog and Pony Show because they are sitting there here wasting our money. They're sitting here telling us that they are legitimate, that they have legitimate answers, and they're actually going to get to the bottom of something. They're not going to get to the bottom of anything. They never do. Nobody who's supposed to be penalized will ever be penalized because the people who are supposed to be penalized are the people sitting there asking all these other people questions. It's just this hodgepodge room full of just criminals extorting wealth from Americans while they say they're protecting and securing them.
Eliminated the fact that either marginalized me as a military officer or
Listen, I'm just telling you that the ranking member met no disrespect to you.
I believe that.
I'd like to go back to your previous testimony earlier today. Much has been talked about, as we've discussed, between President Trump.
I can't be president. I don't want to be your ruler.
And this being interpreted as a basis for impeachment.
I have trouble
And
ruling
your
Trisha.
interpretation of the word favor, and I'll paraphrase you, and you feel free to.
I'm your
correct
ruler,
what
huh,
you
babe?
said. In the military culture, which you
Yeah.
and I are both familiar with, when a superior officer asks for a favor of a subordinate, they will interpret that as a demand. Is that a fair synopsis of what you previously stated?
Representative, when a superior makes a request, that's an order.
Okay.
Carlos says, I'm an Army vet, and yes, you're right, Brian. Everything you said is spot on. And if you talk to military guys, you know, the people who aren't ingrained in this indoctrination process, who really can step outside the box and think for themselves, they'll tell you exactly what's going on. The military-industrial complex is controlling everything. The Pentagon's calling the shots.
In short, then, you think your interpretation
Thank you, Carlos,
of a
by the
favor
way,
as a
for the
demand
super
is based
chat.
on your military experience and the military culture.
I think that is correct.
I think that is correct. Is President Trump a member of the military?
He is not,
Has he ever served in the military?
not that I'm aware of.
Is President Zelensky a member of the military?
I
The
don't
answer is
believe so.
no.
I don't know.
He's not. Would it be fair then to take a person who has never served in the military and to take your reevaluation of their words based on your military experience and your military culture and to attach that culture and that meaning of those words to someone who has never served?
Representative, I made that judgment. I stick by that judgment.
Okay, well, I got to tell you, I think it's nonsense. Look, I was in the military. I could distinguish between a favor and an order and a demand, and so could my subordinates. And I think President Zelensky did as well. He never initiated an investigation. In fact, he's been very clear. He said, I never felt any pressure at all. So you interpreted the word favor, but the two people who were speaking to each other did not interpret that as a demand. It was your interpretation. Is that fair?
The context of this call, consistent with the July 10th meeting, with the reporting that was going on, including the president's personal attorney, made it clear that this was not simply a request.
Well, that's not
Made
true
it-
at all. It's not clear at all. You say it makes it clear. It's not clear at all. And the two individuals who were talking to each other didn't interpret it that way. I'd like to go on to discuss your reaction to the phone call and again, your previous testimony. And for brevity and for clarity, I'm going to refer to your previous testimony, page 155. Your attorney is welcome to follow on. Quoting you, Lieutenant Colonel Bidman, I did not know whether this was a crime or anything of that nature. I thought it was wrong. And I'd like to key on the word wrong here because we're going to come back to that. In my mind, did I consider this factor that could have been other implications? Yes, but it wasn't the basis of, I don't know, lodging a criminal complaint or anything like that. Then you go on to talk about policy concerns and moral and ethical judgments. So your concerns regarding this phone
Yeah,
call
John
are
E.
not
John E.
legal. They're
Hoover
based on
website.
moral, ethical, and policy differences. Let me ask you then. And what you thought were wrong, to use your word. You said this was wrong. Not illegal, but wrong. There are, as I've stated sitting here a couple days ago, there are dozens of corrupt nations in the world, hundreds of corrupt government officials. Exactly one time
Yeah, and you're one of them.
did a vice president go to a nation and demand the specific firing of one individual and give a 6-hour time limit and withhold or threaten to withhold $1 billion in aid if not. It was the one individual who was investigating a company that was paying his son. So I'll ask you, was that also wrong?
That is not what I understand. I frankly don't have any firsthand knowledge of that.
You've
In
not
this
seen the
case, I
video?
do. I've seen the video.
That's
seen that
all I've
snippet.
described is the video. Everything I just said to you was in the video. Was that wrong as well?
Congressman, this is something I actually participated in.
I think
and
the American
witnessed.
people can make a
That I
judgment.
don't
That
know.
too.
The time of the gentleman's expired. Colonel Vindeman, if you'd like to answer the question, you're more than welcome.
I frankly don't know any, that much more about that particular incident. I saw the snippet of the video, but I don't know if I could make a judgment off that.
Thank you. Mr. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel, it's one thing to ask somebody a favor like, hey, go pick up my dry cleaning. And it's another when the commander-in-chief of the most powerful army in the world asks an ally who's in a vulnerable position to do him a favor, is it not?
Yes.
The favor
Let me go
of
back to
what?
that military
To
assistance,
investigate
if I
a
could.
corrupt politician's
Williams.
son. I just dropped John E. Hoover's website or YouTube channel in the box. Check him out. He does a really good job. Tell him High Impact Vlog sent you. Maybe we can get him on a live stream sometime.
Again, when do you
The dog and pony portion of this whole thing is a bunch of hypocrites sitting around questioning a bunch of other hypocrites, thinking they're going to get to the bottom of something and get a bunch of answers for the American people and come clean and have justice be served. Ain't going to happen. You can't have justice come out of Washington's district of criminals. And you won't hear mainstream media say that. You hear them whining and talking about how bad Washington is, but it's always in relation to, if it's faux news, they're talking about how bad the liberals are. If it's CNN, they're talking about how bad the conservatives are. It's always this politics, partisan wrangling, this left versus right paradigm lie that they're always trying to soak us in.
first learned that the security
Theater of the absurd. Exactly, Nick. Exactly. Theater of the absurd.
assistance was being held up, the nearly $400 million that was referenced?
July 3rd.
And
By the way, this is going on live, and when I pause it, it just stops the live action, and then it doesn't resume the live action. It resumes where I paused it from, so we're not missing anything.
were you aware of
Yeah,
any
both sides
additional-
love war.
Did you attend any additional meetings in which that military assistance being
Yep, it
withheld
is an
was
agenda,
discussed?
Vern.
I did. I attended meetings on July 23rd and July 26th where the security assistance hold was discussed.
God,
I believe it may
these
have also
people
been
make so
discussed on
much
July
money.
31st.
And at that point, did anyone provide a specific reason for the hold?
In those meetings, the OMB representative reported that the assistance was being held at the direction of the White House Chief of Staff.
And did they give reasons beyond that it was being withheld by the White House Chief of Staff?
Not specifically. The reason given was that there was an ongoing review whether the funding was still in line with administration priorities.
Did anyone in any of those meetings or in any other subsequent discussion you had discuss the legality of withholding
Yep,
that?
two wings of the same bird of prey. You're
There were
right.
discussions, I believe, in the July 31st meeting and possibly prior as well, in terms of defense and State Department officials were looking into how they would handle a situation in which earmarked funding from Congress that was designated for Ukraine would be resolved if the funding continued to be held. as
Yeah,
we
that's
approach
the
end
issue
of
right
fiscal year.
there. That's the real
What
issue. Do you hear that?
witnessed, did anybody in the
Earmarked funding for the Ukraine. Now, in Trump's case, we're talking about 390 to 400 million dollars. In Biden's case to the Ukraine, it was $1 billion. So you have approximately $1.4 billion in question, and that's what the real issue is here, guys. Nobody in mainstream media is making a big deal out of $1.4 billion being just given to the Ukraine. Just given to Ukraine. Here's Zelensky. Here's $400 million. Oh, it's for defense so you can protect yourself against Russia. You know, that's our money. That's not their money. How easy it must be to have a job where you're giving away other people's money. How nice would that be? And you're making a whole bunch of money in the process. That is the issue. What's the issue in this impeachment hearing right here is what that lady right there just said. This earmarked funding from America to Ukraine, this extortion money. They're making a big deal out of Trump extorting the American people because he wanted to have Biden's son and therefore Biden investigated. That's not the issue. The bigger issue is this massive chunk of extorted taxpayer money just being thrown out the window to Ukraine and other places. $10.5 million to Israel every single day, $60 million every day to NASA. The list just goes on and on and on. Hundreds of $millions just in a couple months to Afghanistan. Those are the real issues, guys. And all these people sitting around in these congressional halls in Washington's, I call it the District of Criminals because that's exactly what it is. And somebody made a really good point, and that's what I love about hanging out with you guys, and that's why I'm going live right here, because none of us is greater than all of us. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I do know what's right and I do know what's wrong. And it's wrong to extort people and then top it all off, give that extortion money to an ally, a foreign power. While we have 500,000 homeless Americans, a surplus of houses, but homeless Americans, and they're going to sit here and squabble about, oh, Trump was trying to look into his political rival. What the? That's not even an issue in my purview, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry, I can't even see that. All I can see is $1.4 billion in just this instance alone. All I can see is $2.5 or $2.3 trillion wasted by the military and industrial complex to the Pentagon. Sorry, that's all I can see. That's why we're having this live stream right here, guys, so I can read your comments and we can interact and bring up things that mainstream media absolutely will not and cannot bring up because it's CIA infiltrated, Operation Mockingbird controlled fake stream media. They have an agenda, distract, deceive, and divide the masses. Don't have the masses think about the $1.4 trillion. Only have them look at, oh my God, Trump investigated his political rival through Zelensky. Not even the issue. Not even the freaking issue, and we're $23 trillion in debt right now. Give me a break.
national security community support withholding the assistance?
But somebody says the aid is for Ukraine disarming old Soviet nuclear weapons. If they didn't, Russia would have never done anything. We can come up with all the reasons and all the rationales we want, but the bottom line is extortion money and extorting money from Americans who these leaders are claiming to protect and serve is the issue. Extorting money for people you said you're going to protect and just throwing it to Ukraine and throwing it to Afghanistan and throwing it to Israel and throwing it to Jordan and throwing it to all these people. That's the issue right there. It shouldn't be happening because it's immoral. It's utterly immoral. And they're talking about building a wall. Why don't you bring all your troops home? You'll have a wall of humans. Nobody's going to touch us. If we brought all of our troops home, nobody would mess with us. But they're not going to do that because it makes too much sense and it saves way too much money. And frankly, the military industrial complex won't make money on that because they make money when they create warplanes and they create bombs and they manufacture death machines. That's how the military industrial complex makes their money. And it's all filtered to the corporation known as Washington's District of Criminals. These corporate employees, look it up. Just type in Title 28, Section 3002. 15A, United States means federal corporation. They're corporate employees. They're not looking out for your interests. They're looking out for their own. They're there to make money. And as long as there are profits in war, there will be little incentive for peace. There's never going to be incentive for peace unless you take profits out of war. And the only way to take profits out of war is to eliminate the politicians. They're the ones that ensure that there are profits in war.
Colonel, again, just for the record.
Yeah, murder is
you
good for
first learn
business,
the
John Paul
security
says.
assistance was being withheld?
On or about July 3rd.
And that's why we're
What
dealing with
exactly
this
had
stuff,
you
because
learned
it's
from the State
important.
Department, I believe, that
And they're liars.
prompted you to draft the notice on July 3rd?
So on or about July 3rd, I became aware of inquiries into security assistance funding in general. There are two typical pots, State Department and DOD. And I believe it was around that date that OMB put a hold on congressional notification.
Yeah, we
Had
should
you
be
had
pissed,
any
Frank. You're
earlier,
right. I'm pissed too.
Indications that this might be the case?
Prior to that, there were some general inquiries on how the funds were being spent, things of that nature, nothing specific. But no hold, certainly.
Were you aware of anyone in the national security community who supported withholding the aid?
No,
No one from the national security?
none.
No one from the State Department?
Correct,
No one from the Department of Defense?
correct.
Did anyone, to your understanding, raise the legality of withholding this assistance?
It was raised on several occasions.
And who raised those concerns?
So following the July 18th sub-PCC, which is again what I coordinate, or what I convene at my level, there was a July 23rd PCC that would have been conducted by Mr. Morrison. There were questions raised on as to the legality of the hold. Over the subsequent week, the issue was analyzed, and during the July 26th deputies, so the deputies from all the departments and agencies, there was a opinion rendered that it was legal to put the hold.
It was, excuse me?
There was an opinion rendered that it was okay to, that the hold was legal.
From a purely legal point of view?
Correct.
Very good. I yield back to the chairman.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Ms. Stefanik.
Ms. Williams,
Oh, here we
Lieutenant
go.
Colonel Vindman,
Stefanik's
thank you
up.
for being here, and thank you both
And
for
now
your service.
Stefanik's up to
As
bat.
millions of Americans are watching throughout the hysteria and frenzied media coverage, two key facts have not changed that are critical to these impeachment proceedings. One, Ukraine in fact received the aid, and two, there was no investigation into the Bidens. My question to both of you today will focus on the following: systemic corruption in Ukraine. Two, highlighting for the public that by law, aid to
Ramon
Ukraine
says it looks like
requires
Himmler's
anti-corruption
son.
efforts. And three, who in our government has the decision-making authority when it comes to foreign policy and national security matters? So on corruption in Ukraine, as Ambassador Yovanovitch testified, one of the key reasons why President Zelensky was overwhelmingly elected by the Ukrainian people was that they were finally standing up to rampant corruption in their country. Would you both agree with the ambassador's assessment?
Yes.
Yes. And Ms. Williams, corruption was such a critical issue from your perspective that when you prepared the vice president for his congratulatory call with President Zelensky, you testified that the points you wanted to communicate on the call were the following, quote, looked forward to seeing President Zelensky really implement the agenda on which he had run related to anti-corruption reforms. That's correct.
That is, yes.
And Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, would you agree that this focus on anti-corruption is a critical aspect of our policy towards Ukraine?
I would.
And Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you are aware that in 2014, during the Obama administration, the first anti-corruption investigation partnered between the U.S., the U.K., and Ukraine was into the owner of the company Burisma.
I'm aware of it now.
And Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you testified that you were aware that Burisma had questionable business dealings. That's part of its track record.
That is correct.
You also testified that regarding Burisma, money laundering, tax evasion comports with your understanding of how business is done in Ukraine. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of specific incidents, but my understanding is that it would not be out of the realm of the possible for Burisma.
Well, that's page 207 from your testimony, but I'll move on. You are aware that Hunter Biden did
Thanks,
sit
Dr.
on the
Shamil.
board
I
of
appreciate
Burisma
the
at
super
this
chat.
time.
Have a good day.
I am.
Well, I know that my constituents in New York 21 have many concerns about the fact that Hunter Biden, the son of the vice president, sat on the board of a corrupt company like Burisma. The
Yeah,
Obama
that is
administration
concerning.
State Department was also concerned, and yet Adam Schiff refuses to allow this committee to call Hunter Biden despite our requests. Every witness who has
wonder why that
testified
is.
and has been asked this has answered yes. Do you agree that Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma has the potential for the appearance of a conflict of interest?
Certainly the potential, yes.
And Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Now, shifting to the legal requirements that our aid to Ukraine is conditioned on anti-corruption, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you testified that you understood that Congress had passed under the Ukrainian Security
Yeah,
Assistance
she does,
Initiative
Penny.
a legal obligation to certify that
setting 'em up.
corruption is being addressed.
That is correct.
Still dog
You
and
also
pony, but there are
testified that
setups in
It's
it.
required by the National Defense Authorization Act.
Interesting
That
chess
is
here.
correct.
So for the public listening, we are not just talking about President Trump focusing on anti-corruption in Ukraine, but it is so critical, so important that hard-earned taxpayer dollars, when given to foreign nations, that by law, overwhelmingly bipartisan support requires anti-corruption in Ukraine in order to get U.S. taxpayer-funded aid. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you spoke extensively about the importance of defensive lethal aid to Ukraine, specifically javelins. This was in your deposition.
Correct.
And you testified that the Javelin in particular, because of its effectiveness in terms of influencing the Russian decision calculus for aggression, it is one of the most important tools we have when it comes to providing defensive lethal aid.
The system itself and the signaling of U.S. support, yes.
And it is a fact that that aid was provided under President Trump and not President Obama.
That is correct.
And my last question, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, I know you serve at the NSC in the White House. I served in the West Wing of the White House for President Bush on the Domestic Policy Council and in the Chief of Staff's office, so I'm very familiar with the policy process. I also know that as a staff member, the person who sets the policy of the United States is the president, not the staff. And you testified that the president sets the policy, correct?
That is correct.
And I respect your deep expertise, your tremendous service to our country. We can never repay those that have worn the military uniform and served our nation. But I was struck when you testified in your deposition. I would say, first of all, I'm the director for Ukraine. I'm responsible for Ukraine. I'm the most knowledgeable. I'm the authority for Ukraine, for the National Security Council, and the White House. I just want a clarification. You report to Tim Morrison, correct?
In my
Your
advisory.
direct report is Tim Morrison,
In my
correct?
advisor, just to clarify, only in my advisory capacity, I advise up through the chain of
Don't
command.
forget
That's
the
what I do.
thumbs down.
And the chain of command is Tim Morrison to Ambassador John Bolton, the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. And do you agree that the President sets the policy as Commander-in-Chief, as you testified previously?
Absolutely.
Thank you. My time's expired.
Mr. Swalwell.
Oh,
Thank you,
Eric, gun grabber.
Vindman. I think the follow-up question that my colleague from
Baby
New York
hater.
did not ask you, but is relevant for everyone at home. Isn't it true that the Department of Defense had certified that the anti-corruption requirements of Ukraine had been met when the hold was put on by the president?
That is correct.
Now, Mr. Jordan suggested that the president did something none of us expected by releasing that call.
Yeah, hold your noses. Here's Eric
You listened to the
Sewer
call, is that
well.
right, Lieutenant Colonel?
That is.
Ms. Williams, you also listened to the call, is that right?
Yes.
Fair to say, Ms. Williams, a lot of other people at the White House listened to the call or read the transcript?
I can't characterize how many. I believe there were 5 or 6 of us in the listening room at the time.
Greg,
the
that's so
transcript was
funny.
distributed to
You're
others.
afraid
Is
of
that
going to
right?
Walmart because nobody's
I wasn't
armed.
part of that process, but that's my understanding.
So the president is asking for us and his defenders to give him a gold star because a number of people listened to the call or saw the call transcript, and then he released it. The difference, of course, between this and, say, his one-on-one meeting in Helsinki with Vladimir Putin was there, it was a one-on-one meeting, and he took the notes from the interpreter, so none of us could see it. The point being, the president had no choice but to release a call that everyone had seen. Now, you've been asked to also characterize what exactly legally all of this means. And Mr. Ratcliffe pointed out that no one had used the term bribery in our depositions. And Ms. Williams, you're not a lawyer, are you?
I'm not, no.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, are you a lawyer?
Lawyer's back there.
The lawyer's your brother, right? Born 20 seconds after you, is that what you said?
9 minutes.
9 minutes after you.
Lawyers and
You're the older brother.
politicians.
Yeah. Lifetime of wisdom there.
Now, I want to give you a hypothetical here. Suppose you have a shooting victim and the police respond after the victim is doing a little bit better and they ask the victim, well, tell us what happened. And the victim says, well, someone came up to my car, shot into the car, hit me in the shoulder, hit me in the back, hit me in the neck. Miraculously, I survived, but I can identify, who the person is that pulled the trigger. And the police say, okay, you were shot, you know who it is, but shucks, you didn't tell us that this was an attempted murder, so we're going to have to let the person go. Is that how it works in our justice system, that unless victims or witnesses identify the legal theories of a case, we just let people off the hook? Is that how it works, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman?
I'm not an attorney, but it doesn't seem so.
I don't think your brother would think so either. Ms. Williams, Vice President Pence was described to our committee by Mr. Morrison as a, quote, voracious reader of his intelligence read book. And after the April 21 call with President Zelensky, you put a transcript of that call in the Vice President's read book. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then the Vice President called President Zelensky 2 days later. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you told us in the deposition that he stuck pretty faithfully to what President Trump had said in that April 21 call. Is that right?
I believe his remarks were consistent, but he also spoke on other issues as well, including anti-corruption.
And you would describe the Vice President as somebody who would make follow-up calls to world leaders after the president had done so. Is that right?
Let me just make a comment about Eric Swalwell, because I cannot stand, all the politicians are hypocrites. All the politicians are corporate employees. All the politicians are on the take. All of them push the left versus right paradigm. Therefore, all of them are poison to Americans and to American freedom. But when you deal with somebody with like Representative Swalwell, you know what this guy's all about. And all you have to do is look at one thing. This guy wanted to take your private property away from you. And if you did not want to give him your private property and his enforcers your private property, he wants to throw your ass in jail. And that private property I'm talking about is the AR-15 or the AK-47. You own that property. You worked for it. You paid for it. You got the bullets for it. You maintain it. This guy Swalwell wants to come into your house through his law enforcement agents, through a red flag law, extreme risk protection order, TAPS Act, whatever. And he wants to take your property. And at the same time, he says he's here as a representative for the American people to make you free and to ensure that you are free and that you are prosperous. It's all completely hypocritical. And now he sits in the House Intelligence Committee. And how does that even happen? How does somebody so unintelligent, somebody so highly immoral get to sit in that chair and pass judgment and make accusatory comments and questions so that he can unearth the facts and exact justice? How does that work? How can people possibly forget that he wants to extort the American people? He wants to steal from the American people. He wants to take the American people's freedoms away. He doesn't care about your freedom. He hates your freaking guts. He hates your family's guts. He wants nothing but the worst for you, him and all those compadres there. But he's going to sit there and act like he really wants justice? It's really a messed up proposition when you think about it. And I'm not just talking about Swalwell. I don't care what the guy looks like. I don't care how big Schiff's are. Schiff's eyes are. We can make fun of it. But the bottom line is these are psychopaths. These are verifiable, narcissistic psychopaths who want to take our freedoms and really lead us down a road of destruction. The pen is mightier than the sword, and the politician's pen has killed more people than an AR-15 possibly could. AR-15s don't kill people, it's people who use those tools that do it. No person using a gun, no atom bomb, has killed as many people, excuse me, as the pens of politicians. Nobody. Politicians are evil, Swalwell being one of them. So I just wanted to point that out. If that was all he had wrong with him, and it's not, there's a plethora of things. He's for the mass slaughter of babies in a womb. He wants to kill people. He wants to kill the most innocent human beings on the planet, a child in a mother's womb. And he's going to sit here and pretend like he wants justice in this? It's BS. No mainstream source is going to tell you that, because they want to keep you distracted, deceived, and divided. It's just disgusting. And that's why we're going over this, guys. As disgusting as it is, as top shelf dog and pony show as this is, as bread and circus under the big top as this is stuff we got to deal with in our daily lives. So might as well expose it while we're here.
He has on occasion. It's not a normal practice. It depends on the situation.
And in that case, he stuck to President Trump's talking points.
I would say that I provided talking points for the April 23rd call for the vice president, which included discussion of President Zelensky's inauguration, which President Trump had also discussed with President Zelensky. But I would say the vice president discussed other issues with President Zelensky as well.
And as was stated earlier, the president sets the foreign policy for the United States. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And you told us that after the July 25th.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true.
That you
Did you hear what he
put
said?
the call transcript in Vice President Pence's intelligence
Where's
briefing.
my
report. Is
cursor?
that right?
The president does not set the foreign policy for the United States, guys. He's not the shot caller. 10 points on your next spelling test if you can tell me what group is the shot caller of the foreign policy of the United States. Anyone? Anyone? I'll give you a hint. Tulsi Gabbard is a member. Joe Biden's a member. Hillary Clinton's a member. Who sets the foreign policy for America? It's not the president. Yeah, APAC. If you want to get specific, it is APAC. That's not what I was thinking of, but it's the Council on Foreign Relations. Rothschilds, Rockefeller. The Council on Foreign Relations is the group that sets the tone and the foreign policy for the United States, not the president of the United States. The president is their puppet. What was it Hillary Clinton said? I'm glad we have a outpost here in Washington, so I don't have that far to go to be told what to do. To be Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, at the CFR meeting, said, you guys tell me what to do. Who's the shot caller? They let this stuff out piecemeal. I can't even believe sometimes I watch some of this video. I'm like, how did the CFR let that one out? Are they just trying to be blatant about it? Do they just not care anymore? CFR are puppets for the Rothschilds and such. Yep. Yeah. It's a joke. It's a joke. This is dog and pony. It's all so illusory. CFR, Bilderberg, the Trilateral Commission.
I ensured it was there. My colleagues prepared the book, but yes.
So let's flash forward to September 1. Vice President Pence meets with President Zelensky. Is that right?
That's correct.
You're there.
Yes.
And President Zelensky with Vice President Pence, they talk
Well,
about...
CFR is controlled by Zionists. CFR is the Zionists. I mean, the first person that comes to the top of my mind, it's not just Rothschilds and Rockefeller, but it's Henry Kissinger for CFR. Yeah, Zionism controls all this stuff. Zionists control Washington's District of Criminals. Zionists control all the lobby groups. So what do they care about quid pro quo? That's what a lobbyist is there for. I'll give you this politician if you give me that. And we're going to set policy, and we're going to make anti-Semitism a thing, for example. Enacting censorship on the American people, totally against the First Amendment.
A lot of things. You will agree that Vice President Pence did not bring
Council
up
on
the
Foreign
Bidens,
Relations,
correct?
Jennifer.
That's correct. He did not.
CFR is
bring up
Council on
investigations.
Foreign Relations. It's part of the big three. You got Council on Foreign Relations, you got the Trilateral Commission, and you got the Bilderberg group. It's that triangle. It's a triangle. Somebody's going to screenshot this and go, Brian's part of the Illuminati. But it is. It's Illuminati. If you want to talk about that, it's the Bilderberg, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, that little pyramid, top pyramid, the upper echelon, at least above. I believe there's even more powerful people behind the curtain that you don't even know about, above and beyond the Rothschilds, above and beyond the Rockefellers, above and beyond people like Henry Kissinger or Benjamin Netanyahu. These people control Washington's District of Criminals. And if you doubt that, just listen to what Benjamin Netanyahu thinks about Americans from his own mouth. If you want to see more on that, go to Adam Green's channel, No More News. Can't go to Red Ice anymore because they shut them down.
Is one reasonable explanation that although Vice President Pence will do a lot of
And
things
and
for
where
President Trump,
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. I'm not sorry. Where are you going to get this on mainstream media? They don't even talk about the most obvious crap, man. The big thing on this Trump Zelensky thing is not the fact that he was looking into his political opponent. It's the fact that he's using extorted taxpayer dollars to do it. They would have been fine if he just gave him the $1 billion. Biden just gave him the $1 billion, or if Trump just gave him the $300 or $400 million. But no, it was linked with, okay, possible quid pro quo. Who cares? Who cares about quid pro quo? That's not the crime.
that he was not willing to bring up investigations in Biden's because he thought it was wrong?
Yep, you're right. Conspiracy
I'm
against
not in a position to
transparency.
speculate. We had not discussed those particular investigations in any of the preparatory sessions with the vice president.
But you
I'm
didn't bring
not-
it up with the Ukrainians after the July 25 call, right?
You did not in that meeting, no.
And you did not either.
No.
And Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, did you ever ask the Ukrainians to do what President Trump was asking them to do after the July 25 phone call?
I did not, I didn't render any opinion on what was asked in the 25.
Thank you. Yield time.
Mr. Hurd.
What's up, Michael from New Zealand? Thanks for
Ms.
coming.
Williams, I want to join my colleagues in thanking you for your service. We share a personal hero in Dr. Rice, so great minds think alike. Did you participate in or overhear any conversations about how potential information collected from the Ukrainians on the Bidens would be used for political gain?
No, I did not participate or overhear any conversations along those lines.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, I think all of us would agree that your father made the right move to come here, and we're glad that he did. You've talked about how part of your responsibilities is developing talking points for your principals. Is that correct?
That is correct.
President, I'm assuming you also do that for your direct supervisor currently right now, Mr. Morrison. Is that correct?
Mr. Morrison has.
Thanks,
left
Pink
the
Star. Yeah,
position,
share this,
some
guys.
time ago already, at least 3 weeks ago.
People got to hear
Did
what
you
we're
do
talking
it?
about,
Prepare
and
talking
we're
points
we're
for
not
your
being haughty
supervisors.
when we say that. If we're wrong,
Typically,
correct
frankly,
us.
at
Truth
that
fears
level,
no
they don't
scrutiny.
really take talking points.
Please don't forget to hit the like
especially if they
button,
have
guys.
Expertise. The talking points are more intended for National Security Advisor, although Ambassador Bolton didn't really require him because of his deep expertise. It's
Sure.
the
Thanks,
next level
guys. I
up.
appreciate you doing
President.
But traditionally, I'm just trying to establish
I
that
know.
this position is somebody
Be
that
accurate,
creates
sorry.
talking points for a number of people. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do they always use them?
No.
Or is President Trump known to stick to a script?
I don't believe so.
So is it odd that he didn't use your talking points?
No, it is not.
In your deposition, if your lawyer wants to follow on, it's page 306. You were asked about events during the temporary holds on U.S. assistance to Ukraine. This is that 55-day period or so. And you testified that the U.S. administration did not receive any new assurances from Ukraine about anti-corruption efforts, and that the facts on the ground did not change before the hold was lifted. Is that accurate in recounting your testimony?
That is accurate.
When was President Zelensky sworn in?
He was sworn in on, May 20th, 2019.
And then he had a new parliament.
See you later,
elected
outlaw.
After he was, is that correct?
He did.
And when was that parliament seated?
That was, July 21st, 2019.
That was when they won, right? They weren't properly seated until August. Is that?
That's right. That's when they won, and they weren't seated until August.
Your boss's boss, Ambassador Bolton, traveled to Ukraine in late August, right? August 27, 28. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did he take you with you? Did he
He
take you
did.
with
On
him?
taxpayer money, by the way.
We know from other witnesses that when Ambassador Bolton was there, he met with President Zelensky and his staff, and they talked about how they were visually exhausted. Because one of the things that President Zelensky did during that time period was change the Ukrainian constitution to remove absolute immunity from RADA deputies, right? Some of their parliamentarians, because that had been the source of raw corruption.
No, you can be a
for
Zionist and not be
years.
a
Is that accurate?
Jew,
That is
Jennifer.
accurate.
No,
Were you
I don't
aware of
broad
this
brush
important
Jews
change to Ukrainian law?
Of course.
or any
And
ethnic
you don't
group.
believe that's a significant anti-corruption effort?
No, it is
It's
significant.
pretty significant, correct. Also, Ambassador Taylor testified that President Zelensky, with this new parliament, opened Ukraine's high anti-corruption court. Right? This had
Thanks,
been an
Colorado
initiative
Doggy
that
Watch. I
many
appreciate
folks
that.
and and our State Department had been pushing to happen, and that was established in that time frame. Were you aware of this?
Yes.
Thanks
Do
for
you
the
think this
question,
is a
Jennifer.
significant anti-corruption?
I take it
do.
as a genuine question.
When you talked about, how many times have you met President Zelensky?
I think it was just the
Thanks,
one time
Joshua. I
from
appreciate
the,
that.
presidential delegation, multiple engagements, but just the one trip.
And that's a one-on-one meeting?
That was in a larger bilateral format. Then there were a couple of smaller venues. They were all in, there was never a one-on-one, but there were a couple of, again, touch points. So the bilateral meeting, handshake, meet and greet, she had a short.
So there was a lot of people in the room?
Yeah.
When you
Yes.
met with them?
Yes,
But
Congressman.
you still advised the Ukrainian president to watch out for the Russians?
Yes.
And that
You know, it's in a way I agree with you. Who said that it's like watching paint dry? Let's see. Somebody said this is like watching paint dry. I can't find it. In a way, oh, Jason, you did. In a way, I agree with you, but in another way, hold on, I gotta let my dog out. I'll be right back.
and everybody else in the room, I'm assuming the National Security Advisor was there. I believe in this case, you had other members of the administration. Were your points pre-approved? Did they know you were going to bring up those points?
We did have a huddle beforehand, and it's possible I flagged them, but I don't recall specifically. It's possible.
In a way, yeah, it is like watching paint dry. I mean, I go through this every day, guys, and I try to pick out the highlights to bring to you guys so you don't have to go through this. The reason I'm doing this right here, and this is unique because I don't usually do a live stream on a hearing because they are kind of boring. But we got to keep an eye on these people. See, if you go over to C-SPAN, or I think Fox News is hosting this live stream, you have 20 to 30,000 people watching it. Could you imagine if we had 20 or 30,000 people watching this live stream and them all subjected to what I'm saying and what you guys are saying in the chat? And let's just say 10 of those people, 10 of 20,000 people looked up CFR. I don't even know what the CFR is. Zionism. What are you talking about? What do you mean what Benjamin Netanyahu said about, Americans being easily moved and spying on Americans and all that, or the Trilateral Commission? These are things that you and I know. These are terms you and I are familiar with, but I'm opening this live stream right here to get people who don't usually, they're not exposed to this kind of stuff. The truth. See, the truth fears no scrutiny, and while it may be like watching paint dry, if we can pull people into this room, that's why if you could right now, just share this link. I'm going to leave this open as long as I can, but share this link so we can pull new people in and just, man, we're just seed planters. It's like Samuel Adams said, it's not the majority who will prevail, but the irate and tireless minority who are keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And Congress, the Senate, the president, whoever's in the president, any member of fake stream media, they're not keen on setting brush fires in the freedom in the minds of men. They are keen on doing the exact opposite, distracting, deceiving, and dividing us. And somebody said, well, how are we going to change this? ... We're not. Well, we aren't as long as we stay divided. That's why I'm opening this live stream. Just share it. And let's get people pulled in here. If we're civil with each other, we can disagree in a civil manner, but it's about exposing people to what the truth is that's really out there. It's clear to see. Let's just take what Alan Greenspan said. Alan Greenspan said, I don't care what the relationship between the President of the United States and Fed is. As long as we're allowed to do what we're going to do, nothing else matters. We call the shots. We set the policies. And like Amschel Rothschild said, who's basically a predecessor of Alan Greenspan, if I can control a nation's money, I don't care who makes its laws. That's why all this stuff is more interesting than watching paint dry, because let's face it, these policies they set, they will directly or indirectly affect us every single day of our lives. And we got to stand up against it.
Well, I didn't.
And you
Give me a
counsel
thumbs up if
Ukrainian
you disagree with that.
president
Thumbs
to
down
stay
if you
out of
disagree
US
with it.
politics.
If you disagree with it and you give me a thumbs down, explain why you disagree with what I just said.
Gentleman yields back.
Let's get some
Mr.
interaction going here.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Williams, thank you for your service to the country. Colonel Vindman, thank you for your service. And it's great to talk to a fellow identical twin. I hope that your brother's nicer to you than mine is to me. Doesn't make you grow a beard. You both listened in real time to the July 25th call. In particular, you would have heard President Trump ask the president of Ukraine, quote, "I'd like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike." And quote, "The server, they say Ukraine has it." This is a debunked conspiracy theory that has no basis in fact. President Trump's own former Homeland Security advisor, Thomas P. Bossert, called the president's assertion that Ukraine intervened in the 2016 elections, quote, "not only a conspiracy theory, but, quote unquote, completely debunked," unquote. Colonel Vindman, are you aware of any evidence to support the theory that the Ukrainian government interfered in the 2016 election?
Congressman, I am not, and furthermore, I would say that this is a Russian narrative that President Putin has promoted.
And are you aware of any part of the U.S. government, its foreign policy or intelligence apparatus that supports that theory?
No, I'm not aware of.
And you are aware that other parts of the U.S. government, our intelligence community, for example, has said definitively that it was the Russians who interfered.
I agree,
in the
Candace. What a
2016
liar.
That is correct.
It seems incredibly odd, though, unfortunately, but not inconsistent to me, that President Trump would be giving credence to a conspiracy theory about Ukraine that helps Russia really in at least two ways. First, it ignores and frankly undermines the assessment of the U.S. intelligence community and seeks to weaken a state dependent on the United States support to fight Russian aggression. It also, for the United States, hurts our national security and emboldens Russia.
Did you hear what he just did? Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedoms. Hey, we extort all this money because, hey, we got these goals and agendas and they're going to keep America safe. Yeah, right. If you give up a little essential liberty, I love what Benjamin Franklin said. It is, you know why I love it? Not because of who he is. Benjamin Franklin was a Freemason. Okay, probably. But what he said was spot on. If you give up a little essential liberty for a little temporary security, you deserve neither liberty nor security. And that is what he just pushed right there.
Look at what President Trump was doing on his call instead of pushing back.
Thanks, Marcus.
Against Russian hostility. He was pressuring Ukraine to do his political work. President Trump stated on that July 25th call, quote, "There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great." Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution.
Hi, Katie
So
Ray.
if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. Colonel Vindman, when you hear those words, do you hear the president requesting a thoughtful and well-calibrated anti-corruption program consistent with U.S. policy?
I do not.
In fact, it sounds like President Trump was encouraging the Ukrainian president to engage in precisely the same type of behavior for President Trump's own political benefit that we discourage foreign leaders from undertaking in their own countries. And discouraging other countries from undertaking politically motivated investigation is in fact a major part of official U.S. anti-corruption policy. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you in fact aware of any evidence that Vice President Biden improperly interfered in an investigation of his family members?
I am not.
These false narratives, it should be said, are damaging our country. They poison our politics and distract from the truth. And pressing another country to engage in corruption is antithetical to who we are as a nation.
What a hypocritical statement.
You also mentioned that this request, well, you felt this request was wrong. And you've also said that corruption in Ukraine is endemic to Ukraine, just as it is in other places around the world.
These people are
What
such
is the, can you
hypocrites,
speak
man.
to, what is the danger of a president of the United States, whether it's Donald Trump or any future president, asking another nation where there's rampant corruption to investigate a political rival or just any other American citizen? What would be the danger to that American?
Of all the crimes to impeach a president for, they're going to pick this.
Congressman, the Ukrainian judiciary.
Yes, General, are you aware that the President of the United States wants to set a policy where it's, I like take the guns first, due process second? There's an impeachable offense right there. Yes, Colonel, are you aware that Trump wants to enact red flag laws? There's an impeachable offense right there. Clearly impeachable. If you go against the Second Amendment, you're literally going against the freedoms of every man, woman, and child in America. And if that's not treason, if that's not betrayal, nothing is. You want a real impeachable offense? Going against the Second Amendment is an impeachable offense. Change my mind. Going against the Second Amendment, going against shall not be infringed is an impeachable offense. Change my mind. Name a president who hasn't gone against the Second Amendment. Trump, I'd like to take the guns first, due process second. Hillary Clinton, we're not trying to take your guns. We just want to limit magazine capacity size and take AR-15s. Beto O'Rourke, hell yeah, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. That's an impeachable offense. And that's all you have to do is go after one. There's hundreds, guys. Civil asset forfeiture, beefing up the military-industrial complex at taxpayer expense, giving the Pentagon more money so that they can waste it. There are tons of impeachable offenses, but they're going to highlight this minuscule crumb that fell from the corrupt table of a president and highlight Hunter Biden's son, and he's doing this to his political rival, which makes him look bad. He's doing it for his own political means so that he can get ahead in life. Tons of real impeachable offenses. Real. Objective. You don't need to call it witness after witness. All you have to do is line the guy's words up, and I don't care if it's Obama. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Richard Nixon. I don't care if it's Gerald Ford or Ronald Reagan. You line up what they said with the Second Amendment, and if the Second Amendment comes against it, they've committed an impeachable offense. Period. But they're going to go after this? That's BS, man. That is frickin' BS. You guys know I'm not for Trump. What I am for is American freedoms. And anybody who comes against American freedoms, you're coming against my brothers and sisters. And if you come against my brothers and sisters, well, guess what? All bets are off. You are the enemy. I don't care who you are. I don't care what party you belong to. That's why it's so freaking dangerous for people to be checked into the cult of personality and get all muddled and mangled up in their minds with all this cognitive dissonance. I like Trump. I like Obama. Oh my gosh, I hope, Hillary Clinton lost. And people get emotionally vested. Bernie, I love Bernie. I love AOC. Give me a break. They're in a cult. Just like you're in a cult if that's how you think about Trump. It's cult personality. It's cult of personality. You're in a cult. You're in a church. You are a cult member. Get out. Get out. If you don't get out of the cult of personality, you can't see clearly and what's going on in these congressional hearings, these dog and pony show congressional hearings.
Is imperfect at the moment, and there will be involved in.
Sorry, the stream got interrupted.
Thank you. I yield back, Chairman.
Mr. Ratcliffe. Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Williams, you testified that what you noted as being
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. It went out for like 30
the
seconds.
call that took place on July 25th was that the president raised what appeared to be a domestic political issue, correct?
Correct.
But raising an issue, even one that you thought was unusual, is different than making a demand. Would you agree?
Yes.
And as I read your deposition, it didn't sound like from your testimony that you heard what took place on that call as a demand for investigations. Is that fair?
I don't believe I'm in a position to characterize it further than the president did in terms of asking for a favor.
You didn't hear a demand.
Exactly,
Again, I would just
Chris.
refer back to the transcript
Massive
itself.
waste of money.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you've testified and explained to us why in your mind it was a demand. And you've given us reasons, a disparity of power between the two presidents. And because you did feel that way, you also felt that you had a duty to report what you thought was improper. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So two different people, two impartial observers, one felt the need to report the call because there was a demand that was improper, and one that didn't report it to anyone. You didn't report it to anyone, right, Ms. Williams?
I ensured that the information was available to my superiors.
So while all this might seem as clear as mud, I think your honest and candid assessments of what you heard on the call tells us what we need to know. We have two independent folks, nonpartisans, and I'm not hearing a consensus between the two of you about what exactly you both heard on the call that you heard at the exact same time. And if you can't reach an agreement with regard to what happened on the call, how can any of us? An impeachment inquiry is supposed to be clear. It's supposed to be obvious. It's supposed to be overwhelming and compelling. And if two people on the call disagree honestly about whether or not there was a demand and whether or not anything should be reported on a call, that is not a clear and compelling basis to undo 63 million votes and remove a president from office. I yield my remaining time to Mr. Jordan.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Colonel Vindman, why didn't you go, after the call, why didn't you go to Mr. Morrison?
I went immediately per the.
People love Jim
per the
Jordan,
instructions
guys.
from the July 10th incident. I went immediately to Mr. Eisenberg. After that, once I made that, expressed my concerns, it was an extremely busy week. We had a PCC just finish, we had the call, and then we had a deputies meeting, which consumed all of my time. I was working extremely long days. I attempted to try to communicate. I managed to speak to two folks in the interagency. I attempted to try to talk to Mr. Morrison. That didn't happen before I received instructions from John Eisenberg to not talk to anybody else any further.
So the lawyer, you not only didn't go to your boss, you said you tried, but you didn't go to your boss. You went straight to the lawyer, and the lawyer told you not to go to your boss?
No, he didn't tell me until, what ended up unfolding is I had the conversation with the attorney. I did my coordination, my core function, which is coordination. I spoke to the appropriate people within the interagency, and then circling back around, Mr. Eisenberg came back to me and told me not to talk to anybody
I'm going
else.
to read from the transcript here. Why didn't you go to your direct report, Mr. Morrison? Your response was, this page 102, because Mr. Eisenberg had told me to take my concerns to him. Then I asked you, did Mr. Eisenberg tell you not to report, to go around Mr. Morrison? And you said, actually, he did say that I shouldn't talk to any other people. Is that right?
Yes, but there's a period of time in there between when I spoke to him and when he circled back around. It wasn't that long a period of time, but it was enough time for me to.
Enough time to go to talk to someone that you won't tell us who it is, right?
I've been instructed not to, Representative Jordan.
Well, here's what I'm getting. The lawyer told you don't talk to any other people, and you interpret that as not talking to your boss, but you talk to your brother, you talk to the lawyers, you talk to Secretary Kent, and you talk to the one guy Adam Schiff won't let you tell us who he is. Is that right?
Trust the plan.
I did my job.
I'm not saying you
I
didn't.
hope you're
All I'm saying
joking.
is the instructions from the lawyer was you shouldn't talk to anybody, and you interpret that as don't talk to my boss, but I'm going to go talk to someone that we can't even ask you who that individual is.
That is incorrect.
Well, I just read what you said.
That is
I shouldn't
incorrect.
talk to any other
The
people.
gentleman has expired.
I'm sorry, Chairman, but
Yes,
that sequence is not the way it played out. I
I'm
spoke
reading
to the
from your
attorney.
transcript, Colonel Vindman.
Jordan, please let Colonel Vindman
There,
answer.
there's the sequence played out where immediately afterwards I expressed my concerns. I did my coordination function. Mr. Eisenberg circled back around, told me not to talk to anybody else. In that period of time, I did not manage
So
to talk
that's
to.
when it happened.
Mr.
That's when
Heck,
you
are
talk to someone.
recognized. Mr. Heck?
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Lindman, let's go back to that. pair of meetings on July 10th in Ambassador Bolton's office and down in the boardroom where you witnessed Ambassador Sondland inform the Ukrainian officials that as a prerequisite to a White House meeting between the two presidents, quote, the Ukrainians would have to deliver an investigation into the Bidens, end quote. You said that Ambassador Sondland was, quote, calling for an investigation.
Yeah, I do too,
that
Truth.
didn't exist into the Bidens and Burisma. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I love
It's
people
that
who
same
love the
afternoon you
truth.
went to Mr. Eisenberg, the council, correct?
That meeting occurred in the afternoon, and within, a couple hours, I'm sure it was within a couple hours, I spoke to Mr. Eisenberg.
How did he react?
Tommy gun.
He was cool, calm, and collected.
Q,
He
trust
took
the plan,
notes,
get
and he said he would
popcorn,
look into it.
AKA get nothing
And
done.
did he not also tell you to feel free to come back if
He
you
did.
had additional concerns?
He did, Congressman.
Ambassador Sondland had told you that his request to the Ukrainians had been coordinated with the Chief of Staff, acting Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney. Did you report that to Mr. Eisenberg?
Well, I feel sorry for anybody listening to this
And what was
puppet
his
show
reaction?
hoax that's not filtering it through common
He
sense
took
and
notes,
logic
he
and
said he was gonna-
rationality.
He'll follow up or.
Because this does go on in our world. And these people are trying to set policies for us. And they're trying to determine what right and wrong is. And this is the kind of stuff that we really got to call out.
Or look into it. I don't recall exactly what he said.
Colonel, you've also testified that on the July 25th call now between the two presidents, quote, there was no doubt, end quote, that President Trump asked for investigations into the 2016 election and Vice
Yeah,
President Biden's
USMCA
son
is
in
as
return
bad.
for a
Or
White
it's
House
actually
meeting.
worse than NAFTA.
Within an hour of that call, you reported that, Mr. Eisenberg, did you not?
I did.
Went back to him just as he had suggested would be appropriate?
He's an assistant to the president. It was less a suggestion, more of an instruction.
Did you tell the lawyers that President Trump asked President Zelensky to speak to Mr. Giuliani?
Yes.
And the lawyers, it was at this point, told you not to talk to anyone else?
That is not correct with regards to timing. They didn't follow back. They didn't circle back around. What ended up happening is, in my coordination role, I spoke to state. I spoke to a member of the intelligence community, and the general counsel from one of the intelligence bodies notified Mr. Eisenberg that there was information on the call, on the July 25th call. At that point, Mr. Eisenberg told me I shouldn't talk to anybody else about it.
Colonel, I want to go back to 2014 in Iraq, when you were blown up. I presume that given the point in your military career and what else was going on in the world, that upon recovery there was the very real prospect
R.E.
or
Leaf, are you
possibility
asking me, do I
that you
claim a
might
party?
once again find yourself
Or are you
in
asking
harm's
somebody
way.
else?
Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman, it happened in 2004, but yes.
Excuse me, thank you. Did you consider leaving the military service at that point?
No.
Are you new to
frankly,
the channel?
Congressman, I suffered light wounds. I was fortunate compared to my counterparts in the same vehicle, and I returned to duty. I think it may have been that same day.
But you
No, I can't claim a party. They're both immoral. The GOP and the DNC are just completely controlled opposition, opposed to the American people. Under Zionist control, it's been like that for a long time, at least since 1913. They don't control anything. Yeah, they make the policies, but they only do what their puppet masters tell them. For me to be a part of the GOP and vote against the DNC is to be a part of the red team gang. Or for me to be a part of the DNC and go against the GOP is for me to be a part of the blue team gang. And to be a part of the red or blue team gang just shows whoever's a part of that shows they do not know what's going on. And they're more than, they're perfectly fine with going to the polls and pushing that button and pulling that lever so that a ruler can rule not only them, but also other people, which is antithetical to the golden rule, not to mention antithetical to just basic human freedom. So no, I'm not a part of a party. I can't be. It's the reason I can't be is it's utterly immoral. And if anybody disagrees with that, I'd like to hear your argument. I'm definitely open. Truth fears no scrutiny.
could have been subjected to additional harm. you chose to continue service in uniform?
I continue to serve in combat for the remaining 10 or 11 months of the tour.
You know, Colonel, I have to say, I find it a rich but incredibly painful irony that within a week of the president, contrary to all advice of the senior military officials, he pardons those who were convicted of war crimes, which was widely decried in the military community. Within the week of him doing that, he is engaged in an effort, and allies on his behalf, including some here today, to demean your record of service and the sacrifice and the contribution you have
Your
made.
service to the military
Indeed,
industrial
sir,
complex.
less than 20 minutes ago, the White House officially quoted out of context, the comments referred to earlier by Mr. Morrison in your judgment. I can only conclude, sir.
Well, if we must take
that what you thought was
sides,
just the president as the subject of our deliberations in this inquiry isn't sufficient to capture
if
what's
we got to take sides, Richard Einstein, let's talk about that. Richard Einstein says, wrong, we must take sides now or this nation will die along with 98% of us. Maybe, number one, maybe some of us need to die. Maybe there are people in this country that need to die. They're not producing anything. They're not helping anybody out. They're a drain on society. Am I saying I'm against humanity? No. But I'm saying maybe people need to die. Maybe it needs to start with, I don't know. I'm not going to go any further because I'll get a strike on this channel. But if you're going to take a side, what side are you going to take? Are you going to take the left side or the right side? Because both sides are evil. Both sides are immersed in corruption. Both sides are controlled by the Zionist international banking cartel. Both sides have to follow the script of the fiat currency Ponzi scheme, which is a dishonest money system. Both sides approve funding for NASA. Both sides approve funding for the military industrial complex. Both sides are controlled also by the Pentagon. So what side are you going to take? Are you going to step up to the menu, the menu of the local sewer restaurant and take poop soup or turd sandwich? Because if you vote for evil, if you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil. How can you in good conscience vote for evil? What if it was just you against 327 million people in the United States, but you stood for that which is good? Then you're the one that's doing right and everybody else is doing wrong. See, the majority, historically speaking and statistically speaking, is almost always, if not always, wrong. They always take the immoral side. They always take the side that's going to result in the most human death. They always take the side that's going to result in tyranny. So we must take sides now. Well, what side do you take? See, there's this false dichotomy of there's only two sides. No, there's not. There are other options. And one option is do what is right. Follow the moral code. Follow the natural law. Natural law dictates you don't do any harm to your neighbor unless your neighbor is harming you or harming somebody else. Don't initiate unjust force and violence on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong. Democrats do that all the time. Republicans do that all the time. Republicans are for gun control. If anybody's for background checks, they're for gun control. So if they're for gun control, they're against the Second Amendment. If they're against the Second Amendment, they've broken their oath. If they've broken their oath, they can't be trusted. They aren't people of integrity. And yet we're going to take a side with people who are of ill repute, not having no good integrity. So the side that you should take is the side that's right. The side that's objectively, verifiably right. Period. That's the side you take. Whether it's popular or not, it doesn't matter. Popularity doesn't matter. Popularity doesn't dictate morality or immorality.
happening here. Indeed, what's subject to this inquiry and what is at peril is our Constitution and the very values upon which it is based. I want to say thank you for your service, but thank you doesn't cut it. Please know, however, that it comes from the bottom of my heart, and I know on the bottoms of the heart of countless other Americans. Thank you for your service, sir. I yield back.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sunday.
Thank you for being a
Sunday,
brainless
the Speaker
order
of the United
follower.
States House of Representatives called the President of the United
And
States
and guys,
an imposter.
I'm not being mean when I say that.
Speaker of the House called
Let me
the
see.
President an imposter.
If you're in the military, You have literally signed on the dotted line that you want the military to tear you personally down and rebuild you into their image. You were molded and reshaped into their image. You are signing on the dotted line that you are going to be an order follower. And people who are order followers abdicate their own conscience and put it in the hands of other people. Even though at the same time they are directly responsible and accountable for their own actions, they still give it away. In the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis saying, well, just following orders. That didn't absolve them, and it shouldn't absolve them. And under natural law, it can't absolve them. You may be able to escape the consequences of your own evil actions on this earth, but that doesn't mean you haven't done wrong by being an order follower. Thank you for your service is just as brain dead as the order follower who signed on the dotted line to be basically a servant, an indentured servant for the U.S. military industrial complex. You're a puppet. When you become a part of the military, you're just saying, stick your hand up inside of me. I'm your puppet. I will go where you want me to go. I will do what you want me to do. I will eat the food that you tell me to eat. I'll take the injections you tell me to take. You're a human guinea pig. Where's the moral standard in that? Where's the virtue in being that guy or that woman who turned your mind off and said, I'm just going to follow the orders of the Zionist international banking cartel, basically the military industrial complex. I am property of the U.S. government. Thank you for your thank that guy for his service. Thank you for being stupid. Thank you for turning your mind off. Thank you for killing all those people the government told you to kill because they told you to kill it and you just turned it off. No, I don't thank anybody for their service. Their service of what? Their service of evil? It's utterly evil. Utterly evil. You would not want your neighbor to turn their mind off and follow your other neighbor who said, okay, kill that family over there and that family's yours. Go overseas and operate that drone and kill those people on that street corner. And I don't care if they're Reuters journalists. Just indiscriminately kill. We thought we saw a gun. Heck yeah, you'd be walking around on the streets of New York City or Lincoln, Nebraska or somewhere in Palo Alto, California or somewhere in Texas or Wisconsin. You'd be walking around with an AK-47 or an AR-15 or a bazooka, some kind of RPG, blowing Chinese helicopters out of the sky. They're imposing curfews on you and blowing away your family. You'd be doing it too. You'd be called an insurgent. You'd be called a terrorist. And you wouldn't care because you've lost everything. You've lost your home. You've lost your hometown. You've lost everybody that you love. Everybody got blown away because they're going to bring democracy. China, Russia are on our soil to bring democracy. And that's how people in Afghanistan feel. That's how people in Iran feel. But they had a tyrant leading them. What was Obama? What was Clinton? What's Trump? They're tyrants. Oh yeah, you're going to obey the red flag laws. You're going to obey extreme risk protection orders. You're going to obey civil asset forfeiture, or else we're going to throw your ass in jail. Yeah, we're going to have the domestic terror cell, IRS, on American soil, terrorizing Americans every single day. That's called a tyrant, guys. That's called a tyrant. A guy who's in power, who's the leader of the free world that doesn't get rid of the IRS is a tyrant. Period. I don't care if his last name's Obama. I don't care if it's Clinton. I don't care if it's Bush 2, Bush 1, Trump. If they're not getting rid of the domestic terror cell that terrorizes you every single April 15th, they're not your friend. They're your enemy, and therefore they're a tyrant.
The guy 63 million people voted for, the guy who won an electoral college landslide, the speaker calls an imposter. That's what's happened to our country, to this Congress. The speaker's statement says it all. The Democrats have never accepted the will of the American people. Democrats don't trust the American people. The American people who wanted to send
Did you hear
someone
that?
to this town who was willing to shake it up a bit. They don't trust
Jim
that.
Jordan just engaged in left versus right dog and pony show politics. The left doesn't trust the Democrats, don't trust the American people. Guess what? Neither do Republicans. Republicans gave us the NICS instant background check system. Let's just call it what it is and forget about the euphemisms. Republicans gave us the infringement system. The Nix instant infringement system. You okay with that? I'm not okay with that. Oh, you're for the Second Amendment, but you're also for Republicans who brought us the Nix instant background check system through the NRA. Check it out. Wayne LaPierre loves it. He glorifies in that. He doesn't hide that. NRA is your enemy, by the way, because they're against the Second Amendment while they say they're for the Second Amendment. If you want a good gun control group, go to Gun Owners of America. Larry Pratt.
And they have tried to do everything they can to undo what the American people decided on November 8th, 2016. They've been out to get
The American people, 62 million of the American people. What if you were part of the people that didn't vote for Trump? What if Hillary won and you were part of the people that voted for Hillary? I'm sorry. There's no opt-out clause in government. That's what makes government evil. You can't opt out of it. It's no, you obey my will. I'm Hillary Clinton, and you do what I say, and you give us your guns. I'm Obama. You give us your guns. But I didn't vote for you. Doesn't matter. It's the will of the people. It can't be the will of the people because I am the people, and it's not my will. That's why it's so messed up, this governmental system. I don't care if you call it a democracy or a representative constitutional republic. It's still majority rule. The bottom line is the 51%, actually the 50.1% get to tell the 49.9% what to do.
the president since the day he was elected.
Against their will and without their consent. That's called slavery. Land of the free, home of the slave. Land of the free, home of the brave. Probably need to rethink that.
The whistleblower's lawyer, the whistleblower's legal team said this. January 30th, 2017. President been in office about a week. Coup has started. First of many steps. Next sentence. Impeachment will follow ultimately. I guess we're in the final step. Started 3.5 years ago. Congressman Tlaib started this Congress. First day of Congress said, impeach the president. Representative Green said, if we don't impeach him, the president's going to win re-election. We got to do it. Most importantly,
funny.
5 Democrat members of this committee vote.
Lisa says she wrote in turd sandwich for 2020. It was some election. That's pretty funny. I vote turd sandwich.
Voted to move forward with impeachment before the phone call ever happened. The truth is, the attacks actually started before the inauguration, even before the election. The ranking member talked about this, his opening statement, July 2016. FBI opens an investigation.
Oh, 2016.
So-called Trump-Russia coordination, collusion, which was never there. Opened an investigation, spied on 2 American citizens associated with the presidential campaign. My guess is that's probably never happened.
I'll be right
in
back. I'm
American
gonna get some water.
But they did it. And for 10 months, Jim Comey's FBI investigated the president. Guess what? After 10 months, they had nothing. And you know why we know that? Because when we deposed Mr. Comey last Congress, he told us they didn't have a thing. No matter. Special Counsel Mueller gets appointed, and they do a 2-year, $40 million, 19-lawyer, unbelievable investigation. And guess what? They come back, and they got nothing. But the Democrats don't care. So now we get this. Bunch of depositions in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol. Witnesses who aren't allowed to answer questions about who they talked to about the phone call. We get this. All based on some anonymous whistleblower. No firsthand knowledge, bias against the president. These facts have never changed. We learned these right away. Who worked with Vice President Biden.
Guys, I am not denying that there's a leftist media bias against Donald Trump. That's clear to see. But you have to understand it's still all part of the dog and pony show. Somebody mentioned South Park and that transgender thing. Do you guys want me to do a lot? Do you give me a thumbs up if I get, let's say, I'll have to get a high amount to do this. If I get 70 thumbs up, do you guys want me to do a live stream on that South Park where they completely mocked transgenders and transgender women in competitive events? If you guys want me to do that, let me know. But you have to understand, there is a leftist bias against Trump. You know, you got the Young Turks against Trump, you got the Communist News Network against Trump, you have MSLSD against Trump, you have ABC, CBS, all the major left-wing fake stream media are against Trump. Okay, that's objective. You can see that. It's clear. It's completely biased. So-called, I'm putting journalism in quotes because it's not journalism. And then on the other side of it, you have lone standing faux news, but they're just as biased toward Trump to just a ridiculous level. So it doesn't matter because they're all basically owned by the six same corporations, world network corporations. They're all in cahoots together. They're all in bed together, and they all have an agenda. Distract, deceive, and divide the masses. One of the biggest things they can do against the American people is to keep us divided. Why? Because we far outnumber the rulers, guys. I saw tons of thumbs up, so I'll end up doing that South Park thing. I really appreciate you guys weighing in on that. But one of the things that I want to show you with that South Park thing is something that Larkin Rose did called the tiny dot, and it just shows how ridiculous the amount of people that outnumber the rulers is and how easily we can overtake them and set our own policies. But the reason we don't is because they have us fighting against each other. They have us actually thinking that there is this left versus right BS that keeps us at each other's throat. We're just human beings. We all live an anarchist life. Not one of us wakes up in the morning threatening to harm other people. None of us grabs people by the shirt collar at the grocery store and says, "Give me the goods," against your will and without your consent. But that's what the government does, and that's what we vote for. That's what Americans vote for. We completely go against our own internal moral code to do it. Because we think, that's the thing, we got a $15,000 hour indoctrination program. We're immersed in this stuff. Obey the authorities. You're a good boy. You're a good girl. If you just do what they say, just follow orders, just obey the commands. Do what's legal, and that's morality. Guys, legality does not equal morality, just like illegality doesn't equal immorality. It's not immoral to drink whiskey. At least it wasn't at 11:59 prior to Prohibition. And at 12 o'clock, when the clock struck 12, it still wasn't illegal, but the politicians said it was. And it may have been illegal, but it wasn't immoral. You're doing the exact same action 1 second before midnight, and then you do the same action 1 second after midnight, and all of a sudden you're a criminal? What magic is this? It's all like that. The reason I use prohibition is because there's easy lines of demarcation. It wasn't illegal, now it is illegal. You weren't a criminal, now you are a criminal at 12 o'clock because the politicians say so. Really? Are they gods? Have we escaped into Greek culture and now all of a sudden Eric Swalwell is Zeus or something? And we got to obey him because we can't resist his will? The only reason we can't resist the will of the corrupt politicians in Washington's District of Criminals is because we can't get together. Because fake stream media keeps dividing us and distracting us and deceiving us. And that's what this dog and pony show is all about. And that's why I'm going live, because people need to hear this.
Biden, who wrote a memo the day after somebody talked to him about the call. I waited 18 days to file a complaint.
Okay, I'll do it, guys. I got your guys' okay to do South Park. I'll try to, oh gosh. All right, so I got to go pick up my son. He's getting off of work here in a little bit. I'll pick him up. I got to go to the gym, and then we're going to have an early Thanksgiving dinner tonight with my family because we all happen to be on the same page at the same time today. So I'll try to scrape together some time to do that, and it's probably going to be around let's say between 3:30 and 4:30 Central Standard Time. Right now it's 10:54 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. So between 3:30 and 4:30, we'll go over it because it's very interesting, guys. It's super interesting. We'll go over the South Park slamming transgender video. We'll just go over a couple more minutes of this, and I got to get out of here.
18 days to file a complaint. What do you do in those 18
Thanks,
days?
Master Dave.
We all know. Ran off and talked with chairmanship staff. And then hired the legal team that I just talked about. that I just talked about.
Look at Schiff sitting there. Now, here's the deception, guys. Here's the deception. The left versus right paradigm does not want you to believe and know that Schiff, you just saw Schiff, he's not up there anymore. Jim Jordan's frozen on the screen. They want you to think Adam Schiff is worse than Jim Jordan. They're playing on the same team, guys. They're playing on the same team who is against the interests of every individual American, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. But they want you to believe that Adam Schiff is worse. They want you to believe that Donald Trump is better than Hillary Clinton would have been. And I hear people say all the time, God, thank God Hillary didn't become president. Can you imagine how much worse things would be? If Hillary was president, the bankers would still be in control. Trump is the president and bankers are still in control. The figurehead scarcely matters, guys. Scarcely matters at all. They're not the shot callers. The shot callers never moved. Why do we take comfort and solace in the changing of the puppets? That's the deception. That's the distraction. That's what keeps us divided. That's why you see, YouTube channels that are so gung-ho for Trump, they cannot see the forest for the immoral trees in front of them.
One of the steps.
Thanks, Murphy's Law. He says, $5 for now for doing South Park thing. It will be demonetized. Much love, bro. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support, guys. You definitely keep me going.
In the whole impeachment coup, as his legal team has said.
That was Murphy's Law, in case I didn't say your name. Thanks, Murphy's Law. You're awesome.
This is scary what these guys are putting our country through. It is sad, it is scary, it is wrong. And the good news is the American people see through it all. They know the facts are on the president's side. As Representative Stefanik said, 4 facts will never change. We got the transcript, which they never thought the president would release. Shows no coordination, no conditionality, no linkage. We got the 2 guys on the call, President Trump, President Zelensky, who have said nothing wrong, no pressure, no pushing here. We got the fact the Ukrainians didn't even know aid was held up at the time of the call. And most importantly, we have yet to have one witness tell us that any evidence from anyone that President Zelensky did anything on investigations to get the aid released. Those facts will never.
Somebody says if Hillary was voted in, you wouldn't be doing this video. Nuclear war would have destroyed us all. No, that's not true, because the plan is the plan no matter who the puppet is. They do what they want to do. It doesn't matter who the puppet is on the hand. It's the people behind the curtain controlling the puppet who set the policies. We would have been on the same trajectory with or without Hillary Clinton. Same thing. The puppets don't matter, guys. Greenspan made this clear. Amschel Rothschilds made this clear. These guys are in control. And they control them to such an extent as they control both the House and the Senate. Look at Benjamin Netanyahu gloating on it. Not only do they control us above board, they control us in data. They control us in technology. Look at all the high tech companies going to Israel. If you have any doubts about that, look at all the evidence that Adam Green from No More News shows. I'll try to leave those links in the description too, by the way.
Change. The facts are on the president's side. The process is certainly not.
Yeah, Irby Font makes a good point. Why is Jordan speaking for me? I'm sorry, he's not my representative. Schiff's not my representative. No psychopathic, parasitic puppet is my representative. They don't have the authority. They don't have legitimate authority to speak for me or for you.
It has been the most unfair process we have ever seen, and the American people understand it. Those 63 million Americans, they understand it, and frankly, I think a lot of others do as well. They see what this for what it is, and they know this is wrong, especially wrong, just 11 months before the next election. I yield back.
Mr. Welch.
Thank you. What this hearing is about, I think, was best stated by Colonel Vindman's opening statement. The question before us is this: is it improper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government investigate a United States citizen and political opponent? Very well stated. I just listened to Mr. Jordan, as you did as well, and I heard his criticisms of the process. Nothing really happened. A lot of people are out to get the president. I didn't hear an answer to the question as to whether it's proper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government to investigate a U.S. citizen and political opponent. And to date, I haven't heard any one of my Republican colleagues address that question.
Yeah, verbal armament says they're all on welfare. Hold on a second. I gotta get my cursor over there. They're all on welfare funded by suckers like you, biggest gang of welfare recipients on the planet. Yep, that's true. If you want to talk about welfare, who do you know that makes $174,000 a year and doesn't produce a dang thing? Politicians do. The base congressman makes $174,000 a year. What if I pulled up a calculator here? Let's do some real quick calculations. Most people work 2080. That's 40 hours a week times 52 is 2080. So if you've got $174,000 a year, I don't know if you can see this. $174,000 a year divided by 2080 equals $83.65 an hour. I don't know if you can see that. The base congressman makes $83.65 an hour. I don't even know what to say about that. And you know they don't work 2080. And I'd rather they work as little as possible, because the longer they're at work, the more likely they are to make a law that's going to make us less free and more poor. Because that's what laws do. They accomplish two things. They transfer power from the people to the politicians and their handlers, and they take wealth away from the rest of us and transfer that wealth to the politicians and their handlers. That's what laws do. All right, so guys, I'm gonna end this. Some people were saying that they wanted to. Let's see. I'm gonna throw something in the box right here. You guys are probably gonna want to see. I'm gonna put my Discord link. Let me just create a link real quick on Discord. Well, I just unplugged my computer. How did that happen? Nice. Good job, Skippy. All right, I'm gonna hop in the Discord chat real quick. Here, let me let you see what I'm doing here. All right, this is my Discord server. I know this is Mickey Mouse, guys. I know. All right, let me see. Let me go to the Discord server here. And we'll go to Shooting the Breeze. Create an invitation. Oops. I just invited Davey Crocco accidentally. Sorry, Davey. Not intentional. I mean, not that you're not invited, but okay. So then now I'm going to go to, let me see. All right, somebody just gave a super chat. Who was it? Darn. Okay, so I'm going to put this Discord link. Oops. I'm just going to blast the chat with this Discord link. And if you guys want to do a voice, I'll do a voice chat. If you guys want to jump in there, I'll be in there in about 5 minutes. I'm going to end this because I got to go pick my son up from work here in a little bit. But yeah, I love talking to you guys. Anytime I've been on Discord, that's why I have the Discord server, because none of us is greater than all of us. And if you guys want to go just kind of banter about, the only rule I have in Discord is if somebody's talking, make sure your mic is muted. Otherwise, you might as well not even be in there because everybody's talking over each other. Just be respectful to each other, like I know you will. I mean, we're not a bunch of kids. Let's just wait for somebody to get done speaking. Let me deal with super chats, and then I'll end this stream right here. Please don't forget to give this a thumbs up, guys, before you leave. I know it's easy to forget to do that. Eileen McMullen, thank you very much for the super chat. So I'm just going to go over the super chats real quick. Eileen McMullen, thank you. Murphy's Law, Relief LLC, Bacchus Shamil, Snapzilla Gorilla, Carlos, Manic Cam, Bacchus Shamil again, Ho Operator, NY buy and Ho operator again. So thank you guys for the super chats. I'm going to head into the Discord room in about 3 minutes. Let me just dump a couple more links in there. 2A, Second Amendment. Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. I really appreciate the super chat. I'm going to just blast it real quick just so you guys don't miss it. That is the direct link to the room that we're all going to be in. Thank you, guys. Please share this video with everybody you know, and don't forget, I'll try to be on between 3:30 and 4:30 Central Standard Time so that we can go over live because I want to hear what you guys say too. I don't want you guys to just listen to me. I want to listen to what you guys have to say. I get a lot out of a lot of your comments. It really makes me a better person, and that's the goal, guys. To build relationships with people, to make yourself a better person today than you were yesterday. So I'm going to go over the South Park episode where they just slam transgenderism, and they can get away with it because they're basically mainstream media, but it's pretty classic. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow banned live stream.